Alright, Marvel Rivals players, let's go over the best and the worst characters in the tank or the Vanguard category for Season 1. I'm kicking it off with Venom. This is the worst tank in the game. In the blue, what you're seeing is the current win rate of the character, and he is bottom of the barrel. I find that to be kind of strange because I actually think the character is quite good, but the point of this video is to kind of talk about why is the character kind of bad. Now, in Season 0, he actually had a pretty low win rate as well, but I feel like it's because people don't know how to play the character. He's actually a pretty decent character. This was the first character that I climbed the top 500 with, and I was really surprised that he even got buffs at all. But I think what it comes down to is that he doesn't provide enough for your team. There isn't like a big enough slow for it to matter to try to peel for your support. And on top of that, he doesn't really provide himself with any shields that can prevent certain abilities from going off. Sure, he can activate an ability where he can gain some shields for himself, but he's just kind of keeping himself alive. But he's still susceptible to all forms of CC in the game right now, and that makes me kind of sad. But seeing that he has the lowest win rate actually makes me kind of excited, because what that more likely means is next season, if he's the lowest win rate as far as tanks go, well, he may be subject to getting some buffs. But I think the main problem with him is, especially at lower ranks, is people will just use the ability to go ahead and dive, get in, and then they sit there, and then they get low on HP, they pop their shields, and their teammates aren't there to really help the Venom, and then the Venom doesn't have his swing back up. And what you really need to try to do, just to give you guys some tips and tricks if you want to play Venom, is to basically dive in from climbing on a wall. Don't go ahead of your team and then just try to slam down and then expect your team to heal when they are going to be super far away. So that's one of the biggest things that I was actually quite surprised with. By the way, this is only counting competitive as far as the games go. Next up, though, Magneto. This character has a 48% win rate, which, you know, I'll be honest, I think it comes down to Magneto being relatively hard to play. Sure, he has a lot of, like, really cool combos that he can do to maybe try to get the characters pretty low, but I think his animation on specifically the sword is kind of long. He really needs to have that Scarlet Witch, which is not the most meta of characters, right? And I think it comes down to the character just simply not being as good as Doctor Strange in most situations. That character is just, like, objectively the best tank in the game. Like, if you were to ask me what's the best in the tank in the game, I would 100% say it's Doctor Strange, which is not actually the best tank in the game according to the stats for the win rates here. But I think what it comes down to in terms of Magneto is his ultimate is not very easy to hit. I mean, I've seen so many people show off clips like, you guys can eliminate Cloak and Dagger, you can eliminate Luna Snow, you can just eliminate them, you know, once they pop their ult. But in realistic games, it's really not easy, especially for your average player, to actually consistently land those ultimate shots. And I think that in terms of his kill potential, when you look at certain things like other ultimates in the game, again, I'm going to reference Doctor Strange here. Doctor Strange can basically have one good ult to win an entire team fight. Magneto, I mean, you're kind of stopping one person's ult and potentially getting a kill, which is great, but how often does that happen? And I think the main problem with Magneto and the whole mindset of you could delete another support when they pop a support ult is that the support, 9 times out of 10, will always build their ult before the rest of the roster, unless it's like Moon Knight. That's like the one like exception for a DPS that can build ult pretty fast. But I'm kind of surprised that Magneto is towards the bottom of the barrel. I think they need to make it a little bit easier for the ultimate to connect, and as well as maybe like the charge rate on certain like basic attacks, just so he can have it a little bit more often, because other characters like Doctor Strange can essentially farm ult, I would say, a little bit more consistently. Alright, next up, this is kind of a big surprise to me as well, and that is Groot. Now, a lot of the tanks actually have kind of a negative win rate, and I'm surprised by it, and I think that they're quite good. But I think a lot of these tanks, it comes down to people not like playing tank, and what happens is they end up kind of fulfilling a role that they didn't want to play, and maybe they're like, okay, we're losing, I guess I'll play the second tank, right? Because to be honest, we're going to save the idea of like what is the best team composition for a future video, but I think a lot of people still need to realize that 2-2-2 is kind of the way to go, or at least one tank. Playing with 0 tanks is usually pretty bad, but again, at the lower ranks of the game, Sometimes it just happens. You just have to stick it out, whatever, lock in 5 DPS and just get good. But as you climb towards the higher ranks of the game, you usually at least get one tank, and it's usually going to be like Doctor Strange, or I would say that the tanks that can ideally solo a little bit better are probably going to be towards these over here, or even Magneto. But if you have a solo, let's say Peni Parker or Thor, it does become quite rough. Whereas Groot, I don't actually mind solo tanking as Groot as much as, like, I really hate to solo tank as Thor, right? But this character does, like, incredible damage. I honestly am kind of surprised that he's in, like, what they're considering B tier, but in terms of order, he is one of, like, the worst tanks, not like the worst, but, like, worst category as far as it goes. Next up, in the A tier, I actually think this is the best tank in the game, but the reason why his win rate might be at like 50%, which is basically at the area where more likely they may be comfortable with it, this character is by a long shot the best character. His shield is bigger than Captain America's, it has a shorter cooldown, it has more that you can block, and on top of that you can really help out your teammates a lot more, and you can actually block other people's ultimates. This character is just like the best, and he has one of the highest skill ceilings for like crazy potential plays of doing like these crazy flanks and stuff. I think he is the pinnacle of like the god tier tank in this game. There's just so many things that you can do with this character, and on top of that you have a really good ult that basically can just win a team fight on its own. And I can't say the same with the rest of the tank roster. I think this is just the best tank to learn in the game. There's never a time where we get a Doctor Strange and someone says, hey, can we swap? Hey, Doctor Strange, can you play this? Unless it's like, hey, can you give me Doctor Strange? This is like what I would have argued is the best tank in the game, but realistically, he's not towards the top. Now we're getting to, interestingly enough, Captain America he's got a higher win rate. Now, if we also look at the pick rate on this character is very low, but this character is really strange because I was looking at the buffs and I'm like, this isn't really that big of a deal. But I think what makes Captain America good is that, like, if you even have a second tank and he's diving the backline and he kind of just runs around distracting, he actually is a quite okay-ish character. I would have said, though, and if anyone plays this game at a high rank, a lot of times people will say Captain America is the worst tank in the game. But I think it also comes down to a lot of people kind of just attacking him. It's almost like Mr. Fantastic, where like if people actually attack him, you get incredibly good value with the character. And the thing is that you honestly kind of want to ignore this character, and he gets value if you actually look at him. But I want to say I'm kind of surprised by this character put on like this tier list in terms of like his actual win rate, because this video is an objective video. It's not like, you know, in my opinion, he is towards the top. It is facts that this character is actually in the higher category than Doctor Strange, even though they, in this little like website here, which is Rivals Meta, which is where I'm getting all this data from, he has a higher win rate, but he's considered lower. But I would have never put this character above Venom on a tier list, but that's like my personal bias. Next up, we have the character that actually has the highest ban rate in the entire game, which is Hulk. Now, why is Hulk so dang good? Well, at the higher ranks of the game, one thing that makes Hulk really good is when certain abilities are activated, you being able to shield your teammates is actually the biggest reason why Hulk is really good. He can also shut down certain key priority targets at the higher ranks of the game, basically disabling like maybe their best player during a certain moment. I think Hulk actually has a lot of good value, although I've always said that like when I play against Hulk, I feel like I can just make him a turbo feeder because I play a lot of Psylocke, and Psylocke and other shotgun-based characters can absolutely delete this character. But at the same time, you know, if he is playing with, let's say, Iron Man, it can be definitely frustrating to deal with, but he actually has pretty much the same win rate as Captain America, but this character is just objectively better. Like, I would rather have a Hulk 100% of the time. And the thing is Hulk is actually pretty good already, but when you actually utilize his ultimate, he becomes a really good hero. And that's because, well, his ultimate is actually quite strong in the game, especially if you compare it to a lot of the other ultimates that just exist in the tank roster. Like, Doctor Strange, obviously, probably top tier in terms of, like, an ultimate, but I would say Hulk is probably really high up there. I think like the good tank ultimates in this game, I would say at least, and you guys can let me know what you think. I actually think that Hulk, when he pops his ult, it's something where you can win a team fight. Same thing with like Groot, Hulk, and Doctor Strange are ultimates where I feel like you could actually just win. Like with Venom, sometimes you can get some good damage. It did get buffed, but I still think that the problem that I have with Venom and some of the other characters that we're going to be talking about on this list is like the ultimates just seem a little bit lackluster compared to a lot of like these support ults that you cannot simply trade out with. But like Doctor Strange can beat out like a lot of the support ults, but honestly, as far as Venom goes, he's usually not going to be baiting things out. I mean, sometimes you can maybe get the limb, but for the most part, it is a lot more difficult, because with Venom, you're usually popping your ult so you can get a lot more shields so you can survive a little bit longer. Even though Venom, like I said, I'm kind of biased because I play a lot of Venom, but I generally don't think Venom is really that bad, especially if you're able to land the headshots. It could be just something due to like lower ranked players loving Spider-Man. I'm sure a lot of you guys have always seen Spider-Man, Iron Man's, like in the lower ranks of the game, they're absolutely terrible, and I think that this could be bringing down like the ranks, basically Diamond and under. People that may lock in Venom might simply just not be that great. Same thing with like Spider-Man. Like if you look at Spider-Man's win rate, it is actually really low, and that's because there's a lot of kids that lock in Spider-Man and they just suck with the character. That's the reality, and maybe this will mean that we'll get more Venom buffs, which I'm all for. But anyways, we talked about Hulk. Let's get to the top tier now. We're running into the second best win rate, okay? The point of this video is, again, objective here. I actually think Thor is an incredibly good character. Now, as far as solo tanking goes, I don't know. But I would say this is a fantastic character to carry games with. I can carry games so hard with Thor, and I'm not surprised that he's actually towards the top. Now, he almost kind of reminds me of Pug in a sense, where like, sure, he's in the tank category, or a Vanguard, right, in this game, but I really don't feel like he's actually a tank. Like, how does he really tank? You know what I mean? Like, if you were to look at this character and say, like, well, what does he do for his teammates that make him a tank? Well, he has more HP. That just makes him a tank, I guess. But, like, he has a slow field, but, like, it doesn't provide his teammates with, like, a shield or anything. I mean, his ultimate is probably one of, like, the worst ults in the game, especially at, like, high level of gameplay. But there are times where you can kind of bait things out. I like this character a lot, but I think it really comes down to having like an additional like flanker. Even though he just like straight up can just walk through, he doesn't have to really set up for flank. He can just like go straight up, maybe get high ground and just jump on a healer and just kind of turbo feed. And well, it can work out if he kills both the heals, because healer in this game, or the support, the strategist, it just has a huge amount of value. And there's so many times, even I'm talking like towards like GM plus, if you've ever played in top 500, like you could straight just walk towards the enemy line and you can get picks, man, on the support. And even if you trade, again, if I go in the back and I distract two supports and I, let's say, kill one of them as Thor, I still get incredible value, and I would say you can still like win the actual fight, because support in this game, or the strategist, is so incredibly overtuned right now that it just makes it worth it. There's really no trading with support for the most part. Maybe if there's like a solo tank, but like you genuinely cannot trade one person that's playing support for anything else in the game, because your team tends to fall apart very fast. It's almost like if you played Overwatch, whoever has the tank die first, 9 times out of 10, will be winning that team fight, especially if you're looking at like higher ranked games. But Thor, I think, is an excellent character, but it's kind of weird because he's not really a traditional, like, what I would consider a tank. He's like considered Vanguard, but he's just like a beefy bruiser sort of a character, and he has the ability to kind of survive for quite some time. But he's another character where I feel like he just gets wrecked by Psylocke. Like, if someone picks Thor, I'd go Psylocke and I can just base roll him. Same thing with like Hulk. But yeah, he actually has one of the highest win rates in the entire game. Now, moving on to our final number one. What is the best tank in the entire game? You guys might be surprised, but there's only one character left, and that is actually Peni Parker. And we've dropped so many video guides on like showing off the gameplay of Peni Parker. If you guys haven't checked them out, definitely check them out. I'll link them. But this character is so incredibly good at doing so many things that you wouldn't actually expect. This character can deny a lot of the flankers, Black Panther, Spider-Man, any characters that are melee based. This character can absolutely wreck. And there's so many weird, interesting things where this character doesn't play like a traditional tank. You can actually overlap your little spider webs. You can get basically 4 counting the nest, and you get an insane amount of shields. And what I think is the most interesting thing that a lot of people don't even actually know about is you don't actually need these webs to fully connect to actually reach the targets that you're trying to hit, which is something that, again, a lot of people may not actually realize with this character, is that you can hit. Let me go ahead and actually show you guys some cool little tech here. This is probably reserved for like a Peni Parker like tutorial guide or something like that, but you can throw down your nest and it doesn't even have to connect. You can have the targets get hit. You can see that this can still register, but this is like really high level stuff, and I will be dropping more stuff on Peni Parker. But the number one win rate in the entire game, as far as the best tank in the game, or the Vanguard, is objectively Peni Parker. Now, would I say that, oh, this means that you should just lock in Peni Parker? If you want to learn the character, it has the highest win rate. But I want to say that there is a slight inflation with it, and that has to do with if you're on defense and you just first hold with Peni Parker, and they get like no progression on the first like point, right? And then you get to play on attack, and then you just play another character. That's going to register as you played Peni Parker for quite some time, and you just have 100%, like you have like a win on that character, right? Whereas like if it fails, a lot of people will just swap off the character. So even though this may have the highest win rate, I want to give you guys a grain of salt that may make a little bit more sense. If you've ever seen the Overwatch win rates, Torbjorn and Symmetra have always had the highest win rates in the game, and that is usually because on defense, those characters are so strong that if you first hold, well, you just stay those characters the whole time, so it kind of inflates the win rate. But if you were to ask me what tank I think personally is the best in the game, I would say without a doubt it is 100% Doctor Strange. But again, I'm trying to keep this video objective, and objectively, Strange is considered in the middle, guys. That's just straight up. But anyways, let me know if you were surprised by these results. Again, these are what we were looking at. This is, again, competitive at all ranks. Obviously, if we change some of the stuff, if we go to like, you know, GM plus, it's going to be, everything's going to have a higher win rate. But that's only taking into consideration the 1%. I wanted this video to cover everyone. But anyways, were you surprised by anything? Let me know down below. What do you think is the best tank, and what do you think is the worst tank? If you ask me, Doctor Strange best tank, worst tank, I gotta give it to Captain America. But anyways, that's gonna wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more of the win rates, and so maybe you can decide on what you want to pick for your next game of ranked. Anyways, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.